Hey, Table Rock Fishing Intel Pro members. First off, again, thanks for being Table Rock Fishing Intel Pro members. Do appreciate that. Time for your weekly video fishing report, the detailed version that is just for you pro members. It is Tuesday, August the 22nd. I've been on the water quite a bit this past week. Even in this heat, I just got done with a trip this morning, tied up here at Cedarwood in Kimberling City, and just figured I'd get this shot while I'm in the shade rather than do it in the sun because it is blazing hot right now. As far as our lake level is concerned, we are at 914.18 right now. I would fully expect the Corps to drop that down below 914 after what they're going to need to run today, and with very little water coming in. It's just, we're 3 feet below pool. Not much we can do about it. It's summertime, but really hasn't been hurting the bite that much. Water temperature today, I saw anywhere from 88 to 92, and I pretty much stayed on the main lake. I stayed in Kimberling, went up to Baxter for a little bit, but the water's warm. It's definitely warm, at least that's the surface temperature. It really hasn't hurt the fishing though, so it's just really hot, and it's hard to fish for a very long period of time out there in that heat and that sun. But the bite's been better. Best way, you guys know, stay on your Table Rock Fishing Intel website. Hopefully the app we're looking at probably October at this point, guys. But stay with Table Rock Fishing Intel, get all that information, share that information with your friends, help them to join. Definitely join before we get the app up and running because then the price is going up. But use your Table Rock Fishing Intel membership to find more fish and catch more fish on Table Rock Lake. If you're coming down though, going to fish the lower end of the lake, I did a couple of trips on the lower end. It's still not great, but it is better than it has been, I guess is the best way to put it. I think the fishing pressure this past week was not nearly as bad as it has been. So we definitely had a few more bites, a few more fish. For the most part, we're drop shot or spoon down there, especially anywhere from the bridge, the 86 bridge, almost all the way to Kimberling. You're doing basically nothing but drop shot and spoon, maybe a little bit of top water, but we're drop shotting a shad-shaped cut tail, UV drop shot worm, chompers drop shot worm. And it seems like that gravel bite has gotten better. We've been really keying on dock cables and suspended fish in trees, but those fish are still there. There's not quite as many of them. The ones that are there are pretty beat up. It seems like every time I catch one, there's one or two other holes in their mouth where they've been caught in the last week or so, which is great. But they are getting a little bit beat up, and those fish out on the points, 28 to about 32 foot deep on those flat gravel main lake points, they've been biting pretty good. So that's kind of where I've been targeting and what I've been fishing down there. Up above the 86 bridge, you do have a couple other bites going on. You can certainly catch them on a Pee-wee football jig HD or Pee-wee spider jig HD or a Carolina rig or a Texas rig. You can definitely start catching some of those fish up on those gravel runouts, especially where the water's got a little bit more stain on it. Most of them have been in that 12 to 25 foot range. A lot of them have been right where it rolls off. You got a lot of roll-offs, especially up around the campground up there, where it'll be flat, 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 then has a real sharp roll off on it. That little stretch right in there has been pretty good. And then pitching and throwing a big worm into some of the brush piles that are on those gravel flats has been pretty good as well. Texas rigging a big worm and throwing it into the brush piles up there, that's been pretty effective. I have talked to a few guys that have caught them on a deep crankbait up there, but I've not had a lot of success. Went up there last, I don't know, it was Thursday or Friday last week, and threw a deep crankbait up there especially around some of the brush piles and some of the standing timber, and just didn't catch a lot, and the ones I caught were short. So I'm not doing as well as they are, but that's really not my jam. So I didn't catch them real good. We're in the mid-lake where I am today. Caught them today drop shotting with a shad-shaped cut tail UV drop shot worm, chompers drop shot worm. Most of the fish we caught today were on gravel. Some of the main lake gravel points out there, I think most of them are around 27 to 30 foot deep, right on the bottom. And it was weird. You'd see maybe one little blip on your screen. You'd hook one, and the whole bottom would come up, would erupt. We did also catch them on a scuba spoon doing that, dropping it down on them, and especially around brush, dropping it down and hopping it around that brush. I managed to pick up a couple of better fish doing that. Caught a few on the LS spin this morning as well. Those fish were just randos. Out there drop shotting, look at the forward facing sonar, see a fish and some shad out in front of the boat, throw to it. The nice thing about those fish is when you do see them out there on those shad, especially if they're less than 10 foot deep, they're pretty aggressive. So you don't have to work them real hard. You don't have to work the bait real hard. If you can get them close to them, you're going to get a strike. So caught a few doing that. Other bites that are working here in the mid-lake, definitely catch them on a football jig, either the heavy cover or the Pee Wee football jig HD. Both of those have been working really good. Catch them on a Carolina rig as well, with a baby brush hog on it. Catch them on a Texas worm, a Texas rigged worm around some of the brush. And then a deal that's going on here, there's bluegill making beds and actually spawning. We're getting that summer bluegill spawn here towards the end of August that we get every year. So we did catch a few fish. I guess the best way to put it is dirt shallow today, less than 3 feet deep. First thing in the morning, caught them on a whopper plopper, caught them on a buzzbait on these gravel and rock mix banks, especially if you get a bank that's got, it's mostly gravel, but it's got some bigger rock on it that the bluegill are spawning up against. Seems like there's some wolf packs and some solo largemouth up there that are chasing and going up, and they've been eating those bluegill that are trying to spawn right now. So keep that in mind if you're in the Kimberling City area. Go up the James. It's been about 5 or 6 days since I've been up the James. Bite was still pretty solid up there. Best bite we had was dragon, either with a Pee Wee HD football jig or the heavy cover football jig or with Carolina rig. Most of those fish were 14 to about 22 foot deep. Most of them on roll-offs. Didn't fish. I fished from point 12 up above Bridgeport, and most of those fish were on those roll-offs, and the ditches and stuff on those gravel flats. It really seemed to be where we were catching them. The bite was definitely better early, but we were catching them up there shallow on those roll-offs. Our best bite was, I caught him best on the Pee Wee HD football jig, but the guys I had with me, one of them was sort of Carolina rig, and he did pretty good with that as well. So it was pretty good dragon bite up there. The topwater bite, I haven't thrown it in over a week, so I don't know, but I imagine if we've got bluegill spawning up here or down here, we've probably got the same thing going up around Kimberlin or up around Cape Fair. I know last time I was up at Cape Fair, first thing in the morning, caught them really good on a buzzbait and a plopper right up on the bank, and both of those baits kind of mimic a bluegill or an injured bluegill, so kind of leads me to believe that you can catch them doing that as well. And then did talk to a buddy who has caught a few in the past day or so, first thing in the morning on a bluegill, an extreme bluegill glide, throwing it up shallow, just basically paralleling the bank like we would with a crankbait or a buzzbait or a spinnerbait or a plopper. And he's been getting up on the bank where he knows there's some bluegill spawning and throwing that bluegill glide from extreme and just working it fairly quickly, just kind of working it, giving it some pretty good cuts, so it's sliding, gliding back and forth pretty hard. But he's caught some better fish doing that, so that's certainly something to think about if you're going to go up the James. Look for these bluegill spawning. I mean, you'll see them. It's not like bass where they spawn 8 to 10 feet deep. These things will spawn in a foot of water, so you'll definitely see the bluegill up there spawning. Go up in the White River. Spent 2 days up the White last week. Pretty good bite up the White. Definitely have a deep bite going on. Catching them on a shad-shaped cuttail, UV drop shot worm, chompers drop shot worm. Just like the rest of the lake, though, it seems like that gravel bite has been better in the last week or so than the dock cables or the trees. I really starting to think these dock cable and tree fish are pretty well beat up. A lot of them, just like down by the dam, a lot of them have got a lot of holes in their face where they've been caught in the past few weeks, and they get a little educated, I think. But you can certainly catch them doing that. Catch them just like we did here in Kimberling on the LS spin. And really, I'm not going out searching for these fish. I imagine if I went out and searched for them, I'd probably do a little better, but it's just when I see a couple out there in front of me, I'll throw the LS to them, and I can, if I can put it on them, I can usually get them to bite that LS, so keep that laying on your deck. Then there's a good dragon bite up there with a Pee Wee football jig HD. heavy cover football jig, Carolina rig. Those are all working on those gravel points, on those gravel flats, around 18 to 25 foot deep seems to be the best depth. It gets a little shallower if you go up the Kings, gets a little shallower if you get way up the White, like above Big M. You'll find a few fish shallower than that, but you definitely want to have something to drag if you're going to go up there. And then the top water bite or buzzbait bite, whatever we want to call it, buzzbait, plopper. I guess you could probably throw a spook. I haven't tried it, but I'm basically trying to cover water, so I'm throwing a buzzbait and a plopper and burning them pretty quick in the backs of some of these pockets where I see some bluegill spawning. I've been catching a few doing that as well up the White. It's almost as if you have to go to the bank and kind of look around and see if you see the bluegill spawning. I can tell you the majority of the banks I've been finding them on have been gravel with some bigger rock mixed in. It really seems to be key to where these bluegill are spawning and where we're catching these fish. But we have been catching some better quality fish on a black plopper or choppo, whichever you prefer, at a black on black buzz bait, especially first thing in the morning when those fish are shallow. But they will come up and feed on the bluegill in the afternoon as well. I've seen it several times where, for one reason or another, wind change, cloud cover, whatever, something comes in, they turn current on, whatever it may be, the fish get a little bit amped up, they know the bluegill are up there, and they'll move up and they'll start feeding on those bluegill. So keep that in mind as well if you're going to go up the White, that there is a topwater sort of bite going on up there as well. Guys, it is almost the end of August. Surprisingly little boat traffic today. Of course, it is a Tuesday, but hardly anybody out fishing. Of course, it is 100 degrees. There's not too many fools who'll get out here and do this. Mad dogs, Englishmen, and fishermen will get out in the day sun, but surprisingly very little fishing pressure, surprisingly very few pleasure boats out. I know the kids are back in school this week, so we've got this week and next week where it'll be pretty calm. The Labor Day weekend will be an absolute nightmare. But once we get past that, we're going to get the lake back. We'll have some traffic on the weekends, but we're going to get the lake back during the week. And even on the weekends, we won't see near the traffic we saw all summer. So fishing's getting good. We're starting to get some shallow bites mixed into this deep bite. Normally September's not a great month to fish, but if things keep going the way it's going right now, September may be a really good month to fish. And of course, the best way, use your Table Rock Fishing Intel Pro membership and get all those reports. Know what's going on. Know before you go, as Corey likes to say. Before you get to the lake, know what's going on and know how we're catching fish. But if you want to hire a guide, give me a call. It's Focus Fishing Guide Service. You can reach me at 417-860-4743. Hit my website, focusedfishing.com, where you can either book online, shoot me an email. Either way, I get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching the video, guys. Thanks for being Table Rock Fishing Intel Pro members. Can't wait to hear from you. We'll see you on the water.